So in this video, we're looking at some harder perimeter of circle questions, and let's get into it. And example 1 says find the perimeter, and just make sure, right, perimeter just means the distance around the outside of your shape. So you've got to add together this length and you've got to add together this length. So you've got to find the perimeter of the semicircle, and it says part A, give your answer in terms of pi, and give your answer to 1 decimal place. Now, the way that I go through this anyway, with these questions, I would always go through it in terms of pi initially anyway, as you'll see later, because you don't get any rounding issues, and then I convert to decimals at the end anyway. So it will work out nicely. But maybe you're thinking, well, how would I even get this part of the circle to begin with? It's just understanding, right, that when you get this part of the circle, it's just half of what the full circle is. Okay, so we know that circumference, which is the full thing, is either one of these formulas. And because I'm given the radius, okay, which is 4.5, I'm going to be using this formula to get the circumference of the full circle. I can half it to get this part here. So I can say for part, let's go and write part A here. Right, well, let's leave actually. Circumference is equal to, I'm using this one because I've been given the radius. So 2 times pi times the radius. And the radius is given as 4.5. So 2 times pi times by the radius, which is 4.5. Now, 2 times 4.5 is simply going to give me 9. So I've got 9 pi. Okay, that means 9 times pi. That is the full circumference. But remember, I've just been given half of that. So this part here, okay, this part is going to be equal to 9 pi. And then you've got to go and divide it by 2 because you've got half of the full circle. So 9 pi divided by 2, 9 divided by 2 is 4.5, and you still got the pi there. So pi goes there. So this distance is 4.5 pi. And you know that this distance here is 4.5. And because the other part of it is going to be the same length because it's going from the center, this is also going to be equal to 4.5. So in total, the whole perimeter is going to be, so the perimeter, the whole thing, is going to be equal to the 4.5 and 4.5, add 4.5, and then you can add to it the 4.5 pi, and we can just go and do a little bit of simplifying here because 4.5 and 4.5 is going to give you 9, add the 4.5 pi, okay, and that is your answer in terms of pi. You've got a number part and you've got a pi part, but the important part is, right, you've got something pi in the answer. That's really important, and that is your answer to part A. Okay, I'm going to go and write it back at the top and say you've got, and you could write it as 4.5 pi add 9 in either order. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to go and write it as 9 add 4.5 pi. And that is simply my answer. And let's just go and highlight it up here so we know exactly what is going on. Now, to get part B is really straightforward. You just type this into your calculator. So let's go and do that now. Let's go and get the calculator over here and type it all in, okay? But the way that I'll go through this anyway, I always work through this like this anyway. I wouldn't type this bit in, for example, in my calculator too early because you'll get a decimal and it just gets really awkward to work with. Anyway, I've got 9. I'm adding on 4.5 and then shift and then pi. Press equals, and there we go. There is my answer. So 23.1 to 1 decimal place is going to be my answer there. So 23.1, and that's also equal to 23.1 to 1 decimal place, which is going to be up here. So 23.1. So really importantly, 9 plus 4.5 pi is the same thing as 23.1. I've just rounded it in my calculator. Okay, and that's the answer to part B. And there we go. Perfect. Example 2. I think we've got 3 examples in total. Yeah, example 2. Again, says find the perimeter. So you want to find the distance of this part of the circle and this part of the circle and this part of the circle. Okay. Of the quarter circle, give your answer in terms of pi again, and also to 1 decimal place again. Now again, it's just recognizing that this quarter circle is coming, and that's the center because it's a quarter of a circle, is coming from a full circle, which I've drawn. And actually, it's not too bad actually. Right, so if I get the circumference of a full circle, this part here, okay, it's got to be a quarter of that. It's 1/4 of it. So I can go and do this formula again because you're given the radius. This length here is your radius. So I can go and say that the circumference of the full circle is going to be 2 times pi times the radius. I know that the radius here is 5, so I can replace r with 2 times pi times by 5. And 2 times 5 is 10, so I've got 10, and I've got pi, which goes in there. But I only want this part of the circle. Okay, so I can go and say that this kind of quarter arc here is going to be the whole thing, which is 10 pi. And then to get a quarter of it, you can divide it by 4. And 10 divided by 4 is going to give you 2.5. So 2.5 pi. That is the length of this arc here, 2.5 pi centimeters. And if this is 5 centimeters, that's the radius of a circle. That must also be 5 centimeters because it's also from the center to the circumference of a circle. It's also a radius. It must be the same. This and this have the same length. That's really important. So in total, the full perimeter is going to be the curved part, which is, well, actually we'll go for the two radii, which is 5 add 5, and we're adding on 2.5 pi. 5 add 5 gives you 10, add 2.5 pi. Let's make it a little bit neater, add 2.5 pi. I should really put centimeters, which I didn't do in the last one, but that's fine. And that is your answer in terms of pi, okay, because you've got this part as pi, which is really important. Okay, that's going to write it up here. So part A is 10 plus 2.5 pi. And again, you can write it in either order. It doesn't matter. My pi's aren't very good, sorry. My pi's aren't the neatest. Make it a little bit better. So 2.5 and then pi. There we go. And again, for part B, you know, just going to type this into your calculator, and that is going to be it. So let's go and get the calculator over here, and let's go and type in 10. So 10, add 2.5, and then shift pi equals to 17.9 if we're rounding it to 1 dp. So that is the same thing as 17.9 to 1 decimal place. So there we go, up there. Part B, 17.9. There we go. So these two things again are equal, just in different formats in terms of pi and to 1 decimal place. There we go. Okay, example 3. So maybe now you're getting a bit more confident with this. You can try and get the perimeter of perhaps this one on your own, and then you can check with my working at the end. So this time you want to get the perimeter of this running track. So you want to get the distance around the outside of this running track like this. Okay. Now this is recognizing that let's just say we've got, this is half a circle. So if you sort of continued it like this, right, you've got a full circle. So if I go and get the circumference of the full circle, okay, knowing that this here is my diameter this time, okay, I can then half it to get this part here. But actually, because I've got the same thing over here, I don't need to bother halving it because I've got this part is half the circumference. If I add together this part, that's going to give me the full circumference of a circle. This part, add this part, would give me a full circle. And this time I'm going to be using the first formula because I've been given the diameter of the circle because it goes right through the center of the circle. So I'm going to be saying that the circumference is equal to pi times the diameter, d, okay, where the diameter is 20, so I can go and say pi times diameter is 20, so pi times 20, which you go and write number first, 20 pi. And this time I'm not even going to bother halving it because I know that in total I've got a full circle with the two red parts there. And also I know that this length here is 60, which must mean that this length here is also 60 through the sort of symmetry, so 60 meters. There we go. So in total, right, the whole thing is just going to simply be equal to the 60, add the 60, add the 20 pi, because right, really this half is 10 pi and the other half is 10 pi if you're sharing it out. So in total you've got the 20 pi which is there, and that's going to be equal to 120 add 20 pi. Okay, sorry, that says a pi, that's a pi, add 20 pi, and that is your answer in terms of pi. So there we go, that's the first part. We can go and write 120 add 20 pi, which is the same thing. Now we've got to go and put that into the calculator. Let's go and do that now. So let's refresh this. 120 add 20 pi. So let's go shift and then pi is down here. There we go. Equals to 182.8, 182.8 to 1 decimal place. So let's go and put that in. So 182.8 to 1 decimal place. And that is your answer up here. So 182.8. And really I should be putting I should be putting meters this time because it's a length and meters. Okay, so there we go. And this is your answers. So there we go, part A and part B. There we go. And hopefully that was useful. Hopefully not too long. Yeah, 10 minutes, not too bad. But thank you for watching. And of course you can comment any questions that you have below. Thank you.